Child of the Wolves, Chapter 11. Dismal Days. The sun was high in the sky when Granite awoke to the cry of a wolf. From the other side of the stream a howl rose, wavered, and dropped. The sound brought Snowdrift to her feet. She threw back her head and howled in reply, then splashed through the water and scrambled up the far bank. Through the trees came Ebony, followed by the rest of the pack. In his mouth the leader held the haunch of a caribou. Snowdrift bounded up to him, her tail wagging rapidly and her bottle wiggling with joy. She licked Ebony's muzzle. He pranced in front of her, turning his head so that she could see the great piece of meat he carried. The pack crossed the creek and entered the meadow. Ebony dropped the caribou before Snowdrift and stepped back. The white wolf fell on the meat, tearing off large pieces and swallowing them. At the sight of food, water filled Granite's mouth. He was suddenly hungry. He scampered to Snowdrift's side, ready to eat. Before Granite could snatch a morsel, Snowdrift growled. She snapped fiercely, her teeth closing in the air close to the puppy's head. Granite cringed, terrified at the sudden change in her behavior. Until now, Snowdrift had been kind and loving. Now she would not let him eat. Backing away, he lay down several feet from the meat and watched. Breeze, her stomach swollen with meat she had eaten at the kill, walked to Granite's side. She favored her left hind foot, which was missing 2 pads. She was a gray wolf with a yellowish face. When she looked down at the puppy, her wide-spaced yellow eyes were cold. She did not care for this orphan that Snowdrift had adopted, but she obeyed the pack leader's decisions. Granite got up, whined, and wagged his tail. When Breeze did not growl, he licked the side of her mouth. She motioned and stepped away. Granite followed, jumping up and nipping at her muzzle with every step. Just as Ebony had done in the den, Breeze opened her jaws wide enough to engulf the little dog's head, then squeaked. A cascade of warm meat hit the grass in front of him. He gulped the chunks of caribou, his eyes fixed fearfully on the other wolves. Before Granite could finish, Strider ran up, grabbed the biggest piece of caribou, and darted off. Breeze saw him take the meat, but did nothing. Her job was to provide Granite with food, not to make sure that he ate it. When Snowdrift had finished her meal, there were only a few shreds of flesh left on the bone. She walked to the place where the pack rested and lay down. Climber looked around warily, then hurried to the bone. He grabbed it and carried it away. Far from the drowsy pack, he settled down to chew on his prize. With his stomach full, Granite walked slowly to Snowdrift's side. He curled up beside her, but was careful not to touch her. This time, he did not relax and go to sleep. Instead, he watched Snowdrift, hoping for some signal. He was confused and ready to flee at the faintest growl. To his surprise, she whined a welcome and began to bathe him. As the wolf licked his face and belly, Granite pondered the sudden changes in her behavior. He did not know that he had broken an important rule of the pack when he tried to eat before one of the pack leaders had finished her meal. Nor did he know that Breeze had fed him only because Ebony insisted on it. Through the long summer, Snowdrift treated Granite like her own pup. It may have been his blue eyes that made her so loving. Baby wolves have blue eyes, but they soon change color, turning yellow or brown. Granite's eyes were always the color of the summer sky. Snowdrift let Granite pull her tail, tackle her, and leap over her sleeping body. But when she wearied of his attention, she pinned the puppy to the ground and with a gentle growl let him know that she wanted to sleep. Although Ebony had no interest in Granite, he protected him because Snowdrift had taken the pup as her child. He made the other wolves feed the little dog, even when there was not enough to satisfy their own hunger. The wolves resented the task, but they obeyed Ebony. They carried back food from the hunt, sometimes in their stomachs and sometimes in their jaws. Often they brought Arctic hare, which was easy to catch because its white fur stood out against the brush. They brought snowshoe hare, whose gray summer coat made it harder to catch. They brought sheep, and they brought caribou. When they could find nothing else, they brought ground squirrel. Although the wolves fed Granite, he could tell that they did not like him. If Snowdrift was not watching, they often snatched back the food they brought. Sometimes they stole so much of the puppy's food that he went hungry. Granite's only playmate was Climber, who had been a puppy the year before. Perhaps the pair got along so well because the black markings on Climber's face reminded Granite of his mother and brothers. Perhaps they got along because Climber was too young to hate the dog. All the wolves liked Climber. The long guard hairs over his shoulders stuck out in every direction, making him look always ready for a game. He played pranks on the big wolves. Sometimes he pounced on them while they slept. Sometimes he jumped in front of them from behind a rock or bush along the trail. When he did this, the wolves wagged their tails and nuzzled him. Granite soon learned that the other wolves would not tolerate such behavior from him. When he tried to join in the play, they snarled at him. Climber seemed to forget that Granite was only a dog. During the long afternoons, the pair had great games of tag, tussled over bones, and ran after birds and butterflies. Granite found it fun, except when Climber decided to practice his fighting skills. Then he leaped on the puppy, bowled him over, and nipped him until he yelped. When Climber did this, Granite thought of Digger. The days passed, but Granite still missed his family. When he curled up to sleep, their pictures danced in his head. Each time he woke up whimpering with homesickness, Snowdrift licked his face and quieted his cries. Sometimes life in the pack was painful. Ebony and Breeze simply pretended that Granite did not exist between feedings. But Strider and Romer did everything they could to make the little dog's life miserable. When he came near them, they growled. When he was slow to move away, they cuffed him with a heavy paw. When they saw him chewing on a bone, they took it away, even though they did not want it for themselves. Granite did not know why they hated him. Later, he understood that Strider wanted no outsiders in the pack, especially dogs. He thought they were weak animals whose short legs could never keep up the hunting pace set by the wolves. If Strider had been a pack leader, Granite knew he would have died on the night they found him. Romer worshipped Strider and copied the gray wolf's every act. Romer was a year older than Climber and considered himself an adult. His coat was black, except for a yellowish streak behind each shoulder and a scattering of silver hairs along his sides. He hated Granite because Strider did. Most of the time, Granite managed to stay out of their reach. He learned to keep several wolves between him and his persecutors while he drank. He learned to stop his play and walk off when games with Climber took him near the sleeping males. He learned to stay at Snowdrift's side when Strider and Romer were awake and moving about the meadow. But even with the white wolf to protect him, a glance from Strider sent a shiver of fear from Granite's nose to the tip of his tail. And the frosty glare in Romer's eyes could stop him in mid-jump and send him hunting for Snowdrift.